Okay, so today I'm going to be going over a MacBook Air board that's not turning on. This is an 820-3209. I want to go over a little bit of the troubleshooting process, how I figure out what's wrong with it. So this board has already been through an ultrasonic cleaner. It came in for liquid damage from my friend Sonny, who has taken my practical board repair course no less than 3 times already, which is why I'm a little fed up that this is here, but I digress. So let's get started on what's wrong with it. So the first thing that I like to do with any of these boards is I like to talk about, what I call the holy trinity of MacBook power, which is 12 volts, 5 volts, and 3 volts. Or in this case, it's going to be 8 volts, 5 volts, and 3 volts. So these boards have 3 main voltage rails, which is PP-bus G3 hot, which is 12.6 volts, or 8 volts in an air. PP3V42, which is the 3.42 volt power line. You need that for the one-wire circuit to work. And then you have the 5 volt rail. So PP5ES4, S4, PP5ES5, or PP5ES3, whatever it is on your particular machine. So in this machine, I check for PP-bus G3 hot, and my multimeter is telling me that I have 8.3, good. I have an orange light in the charger, so obviously I have my PP3V42. Now let's check for other voltages on this board. Okay, at this point I'm going to check for PP5ES3. So let's see where that is. So I check and I look over here, and of course the board is in a different orientation than it is to me. Hurts my brain. Let's see. So I have right over here, I'm going to check. Okay, so I do have PP5ES3. Now, I'm also interested in what state I'm in. So if I have PP5ES3, the machine is clearly making it to an S3 state. Now, I may be interested to see if it's in an SO state. I mean, because the newer Airs, all these Core i5 platforms, they're supposed to turn on as soon as you plug the charger in. It's not like it waits for you to hit the power button to turn it on. So let's see what I get for PP5ESO. Alright. Also, if you want to know where I'm finding these lists of voltage rails, if you erase that, if you want to see where I'm finding this list of voltage rails, it's actually right here in the schematic. Make sure, there we go, yeah. So you're going to see a page that lists all the voltage rails and the voltage that you should expect to see at that particular location. And you'll learn over time which ones you want to check first and which ones you want to check later. So now that I've checked PP5ES5, PP5ES3, I want to check PP5ESO. Because if I have that voltage, then that means that the computer itself is turning on, and it means that I need to figure out what SO voltage is missing. So PP5ESO is present. I have 5.04 volts there. That means that the machine itself is in an SO state, which means that I have an SO power rail that is missing. So let's see which SO power rail is missing. So there are different states for the machine. S5, off. S3, sleeping. SO, on. So this machine right now, believe it or not, it's actually on. The fan isn't spinning. Nothing shows up on the screen, but there are voltage rails on for it to be on. It wants to be on. So let's look for PP3V3SO. Make sure Open Broadcaster is still recording here. Okay, where can I measure PP3V3SO? It turned the board around again. Roar. Ah. PP3V3SO is there. Okay, let's go to the next one. So the next SO line is going to be PP1V8_SO_reg. PP1V8_SO. Where does that show up? Okay, this shows up over... Let's see, where is that power line? Okay, shows up over here. So I go to measure and I see 1.78. And a little bit of corrosion. And the machine itself actually just turned on. Pretty interesting, because this was not turning on before. It was actually dead. This is pretty interesting. Let's show you that area. So this, does this look like stuff that I want to keep here? So keep in mind, I'm missing an SO power rail. That's why this board is here. I'm missing an SO line. And this is what one of my SO lines looks like. So what I'm going to do right now, again, this is kind of funny because this board did not work, and as soon as I went to measure, it showed up and it worked, which is really funny. Because the fan was actually spinning. It was not spinning just a second ago. That is funny. And the preliminary tests also showed that it was missing an SO. Wow. And it's decided to start working because I was filming it? It's pretty cool. Because this was dead. Like, I mean, I know people are not going to believe me now, but this shit was dead before. It was. I'm not making this up. Oh, man. Well, anyway, the point I'm trying to get across here, that was supposed to fucking measure 0. The point I'm trying to get across here is, if you see that you're in an SO state, meaning that you have SO power rails showing up on your machine, alright, you have a nice day, man. Alright. My soldering goes downhill terribly when I'm trying to multitask and sell a douchebag while simultaneously solder. So, yeah, so where was okay. So this was missing an SO rail. I knew that much because it was in an SO state, but it wasn't on. And I know that from the moment I plugged this fucking charger in that the fan wasn't spinning. I know that much. And I know that when he brought it, that the fan wasn't spinning because I was actually at his shop trolling him on what could potentially be wrong with this board. And I know that it was dead. And I know that the other guy here put it on my desk because it was dead. And when I decide to put it up to start doing a fucking video, and I get to the rail that was most likely the one that didn't work, it decided to turn on. I have no explanation for this shit, but it's how it works. It really is. It's set up to make me look like an idiot all the time. Anyway. It was just another 10-minute phone call with somebody that wants to know why I can't fix their motherboard and guarantee motherboard repair inside of less than a day. And that's the thing, like, there's a pretty good chance that I actually can do that stuff pretty quickly. It's just don't start doing that shit where you're, like, trying to get me to guarantee it. Because that's not going to happen. I mean, that's all I have to say there. So this little resistor is gone, and oh boy, it looks like it goes to something that's going to be a bitch to get a wire going to. So R7986, that pad is fucked. And that's not going to be a fun thing to run a wire to. I just know that that's going to be a signal that I'm not going to find anywhere other than near the CPU or something. So P1V8 SOEN. So here's the problem. So let me explain what was going on here. Let me explain why the guy took my course 3 times is still bringing boards to me. Remember when I said check your power rails to see what's not turning on? This page tells you all the power rails that should be present in your machine. So when you go to this page over here, you should check every single one of these with your multimeter, and if one is not showing up, then you should go to that area and see why. And when I went to that area for that PP1V8 SO rail, I see a huge honking thing of water right over here, right by the enable. Now, just to be safe, so this shit doesn't come back, I did replace this chip, and there was a good chance that that chip itself was actually fine. I replaced it just to be safe. The most likely issue here was that this big pile of green shit on the enable was keeping PM sleep S3RL from going to the P1V8SO enable of the chip. This chip was not being told to turn on. There was no voltage at the enable because the sleep signal, PM sleep S3RL, which I have to find out or on a wire to that resistor, was not getting to that chip. And oh, this is pretty nice. There's actually a probe point here where I can grab that resistor to. What's up, Tashi? Alright, so I was being bothered non-stop yesterday, so unfortunately I wasn't able to do the soldering on camera. On the weekend, instead of having my regular staff here, I have one part-timer. And just about any time somebody wants to give them a hard time for no reason because they can kind of sense that somebody who is not the owner is there, they will just dig their claws in, and I just had to help with that, and since I had to keep answering the phone, I didn't have time to show you how this was done. So anyway, so what I wound up doing here to make this work is I scraped away where that resistor was, where that was messed up, so let me just show you that on here on the board view software. Let me just open up the board view software and switch it over so that you could see what it is I'm talking about. So as I said, the problem was that this chip was not being told to turn on, and that the area just kind of looked like shit. Let's just find the chip. Here we go. So right over here where P1V8SOEN is, P1V8SOEN, that is created from PM sleep S3RL, and this pad over here was gone, and that area looked like complete shit. So I kept scraping and scraping and scraping away, and eventually I saw that there was a very, very small little piece of copper that I could solder it to. And when I did that, the board turned on and worked. But I didn't want to necessarily trust that that was going to be enough, so what I did is I put a wire from where PM sleep S whatever was, and I ran a wire to that point. So if that pad just so happens to fail, which I doubt it will, but if the pad just so happens to fail, I now have a wire there, and let me just show you what the wire looks like in the microscope. So yeah, I also conformal coated it so that I wouldn't have to worry about the thing moving around. And after I after I did all the soldering, I put it in the ultrasonic cleaner. After the ultrasonic cleaner, I put it in the alcohol. Then I put it in the oven to get rid of any of the residue. After the oven, I applied the conformal coating. Then I put it back in the oven to cure, and this is what it looks like. So yeah, it's kind of a pile of green shit, but it's a pile of green shit that I don't have to worry about. So, you know, like let's say this wire here, you know, something touches it, the wire doesn't move. Like over here, I touch and the wire is not, you know, it's not moving. I don't have to worry about the wire moving. I don't have to worry about things coming off, which is a great part of conformal coating. And I green wired this whole thing all the way over there. So it's a big old mess of green. And just to go back to the schematic to reiterate what it is I did. So let's go back over here to the schematic for this particular model. And open it up in full screen so that it's easy to see. Okay, so Sonny said check Q7950. So what I want to do here is I want to look and see just how close Sonny was to being right. So Q7950 is a logic gate for the SO rail P-good circuit. So what this does is if PP3V3SO is present, PP1V5S3RSO is present, and PP1V05SO over here is present. If those three signals are present, you get all system power good. And all system power good is one of the signals that is required in order for the machine to actually turn on. So you were very, very close. You noticed that your machine is not giving you an SO P good, which means that something is wrong with the SO state. So SO rails are coming on, but you notice that you're missing all system power good. And you were on the right track. The problem is that after noticing that your SO rails were not there, one of the you should have done, one of the right things to do would have been to go to page 7 of the schematic here. And when you go to page 7 of the schematic, you'll get a list of power rails. And you should have went through and checked every single one of your SO rails to see which one is missing. Again, when your machine is not working, go through this list and go through the rails. And then when you then try to figure out why one of them is not working, if one of them is missing. So if you're missing one, go to that area. Is there corrosion? Is it not being told to turn on? Is another chip not sending the signal that's needed for that to turn on? And over here, when I got to PP1V8SO, I decided, let me see where PP1V8SO is created. And I hit enter on here a few times, and eventually it brings me to a page where I get to see what chip is responsible for creating PP1V8SO. And what's responsible for creating PP1V8SO is U7720. I decided, let me look on the microscope for where U7720, which means in the board view I type C, and I type U7720. This is going to tell me where U7720 is, and then when I zoomed in on it in the microscope, I noticed that it looked like complete shit. Now, one of the things you're also going to notice here is that PP1V8SO is responsible for creating PP1V05. So let's see how PP1V8SO is required for creating PP1V05. Now, check this out. Let's see, you said that Q7950 was the one that you were suspect of. So PP1V05 is one of the voltages that's required for all system power good. One of the other things that I keep telling you is if a power rail is missing, don't just troubleshoot that power rail, check the power rail above it. So for example, if PP5VS5 is missing, see if you have PP-G3 hot first. If your 5-volt rail is missing, then check the 12-volt rail to see if the 12-volt rail is there. The 5-volt rail is created from the 12-volt rail. So if your 12-volt rail is missing, your 5-volt circuitry can be perfectly fine, but it's not actually going to create 5 volts since you're missing the 12. Over here, you need those 3 voltage rails. So PP1V5S3. You need PP3V3, which are rails that we had, but you don't have PP1V05. I know you don't have PP1V05 because you don't have PP1V8. You need PP1V8 to create PP1V05. So if you were very, very close. You saw that Q7950 is where something messed up for you. So you notice that you're not getting all system power good. Now, if you checked here, you would see that you have PP1V5S3RSO. You would have checked and you would have seen that you had PP3V3SO, but you were missing PP1V05. So you'd go to PP1V05. And you could see in this diagram over here that PP1V05 is created from PP1V8. And this is where this is where you got stuck in the troubleshooting, and sadly this is where I'm taking $200 for 10 minutes of my time. But this is where you got stuck, and hopefully by seeing it, you learn and you don't make the same mistake next time. Because again, these mistakes are expensive. But that's about that for today, and I hope you learned something. And oh, I have to show that it works, don't I? I have to show that this thing actually turns on. That's a tradition that I have going here, that you see that I am not just making this shit up. Okay, so let's turn it on and see if it works before I give it back to Sunny. Okay, it dongs. After the dong, it turns on. Let's see that. This is the machine that Sunny gave me that actually has a dead SSD, so you're not going to see much at this point. But let's see if we get to a question mark folder. That'll show that the thing at least has its brain going. That is one shit Toshiba SSD there. Oh, okay, not dead SSD. Beautiful. Amazing. Lovely. It works. We're done. Hope you learned something.